Hi, good day, and welcome to another edition of AEA Insights. My name is Daniel Odo. On AEA Insights, we bring you some of the most riveting conversation around energy, around EV adoption, and everything power and energy related. We'll conclude on our conversation on energy, electric vehicles in Ghana, its adoption, and the things you need to know about the new emergence and craze for electric vehicles. In the second concluding part, we're going to discuss the policy and regulatory aspect of it. While all of you are craving to own an electric vehicle, what are the regulations around it? What, as a country, have we put in place to, if you like, make room for all the curiosity and the interest people have generated about electric vehicles? Jermyn Amissah-Arthur is still my guest on this episode. Jermyn, thank you very much. We've had a lot of feedback following our first episode. I'm sure you go down in history as one of the people who picked the interest of a lot of Ghanaians to get electric vehicles. But on this concluding part, we'll talk about the regulatory and the policy aspect as a country and whether or not we are prepared for it. So thank you very much once again for joining us and sharing your insights with us.
Yeah, thank you, Daniel.
All right. So my first question to you will be, as a country, are we ready for large scale adoption of electric vehicles?
I mean, you can argue that the adoption is already large scale because you look at it. If you say more than 30,000,
more than 30,
more than 30,000 new energy vehicles. You know, the thing about EVs is the categorization is a bit different. Sometimes the plug-in hybrids, as well as what we call EVs, being the full battery electric.
So this 30,000 includes the hybrid vehicles.
It does.
It does. Okay.
It does.
All right.
Yes, it does. So there's a significant number of new energy vehicles in the system. Yeah.
Usually, a lot of people would criticize governments, policymakers that the technology moves faster than the policy. So as a policy, at the policy angle, we're always playing catch up. And sometimes by the time the regulations are made for the product, it probably has even moved faster than what the policy is supposed to address. Do you think that policy-wise, regulation-wise, we are in tandem with the interest and the curiosity about electric vehicles?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that's tricky. I think private sector has to innovate, right, and then governments regulate.
Okay.
Sometimes we're a bit hard, we're a bit hard on government, because sometimes how can you regulate something that's not yet in the fall? Because when something comes into implementation, there's all kinds of lessons and things that you learn. Sometimes in my view, that's why policy or regulation trails the private sector and innovation or implementation, because you have to see the effect on the local population and then be able to react to that. And when it comes to that, I mean, government has had this Drive Electric initiative that's been coordinated by the Energy Commission for years now. Okay. That's actually one of the initial papers that I had seen, that kind of allowed me to craft my view on EVs or see how we could use it. So the Energy Commission is doing a good job of coordinating that. Recently they launched their charging station at their office.
Oh, they have a charging station in their office?
Yeah. They launched a charging station at their office. So Energy Commission also coordinates with their partners at ECG to be able to make sure that these things happen. I think they have a electric vehicle roadmap and the like. So there's been significant development by Energy Commission and other government agencies towards the adoption of electric vehicles and preparing. And they do have all these standards as it relates to electric vehicles charging. So they coordinate with the Ghana Standards Authority and ECG and the likes to make sure that the ecosystem is,
That looks like a lot of stakeholders. So you've mentioned ECG, you've mentioned Ghana Standards Authority, you've mentioned Energy Commission. Yeah. Are they the key stakeholders in this chain?
Yeah, I think they're the key stakeholders.
Okay.
When it comes to, because ECG needs to know, right? Like we have discussed, because government for energy planning, right? So if there's going to be that uptake of electric vehicles, I'm sure they are reviewing the data to be able to now forecast the additional load, electric vehicles are going to add to the system. So ECG plays a key role. Energy Commission providing those standards, they'll inspect that installation to make sure that it's up to code, up to standard. You had asked me earlier about specialized wiring, right, for a house. Those types of things fall under the purview of Energy Commission, right? When it comes to wiring and the like, and then Ghana Standards Authority, obviously, the standards of what we're importing, the electrical equipment, the EV cars, to make sure that they are up to a certain safety standard or operating standard. So, and I know those stakeholders, but obviously, there's a lot of stakeholders within the chain who come together to make this work.
But from everything you've seen, the policy papers and everything, you think we're on track as a country? Are there best practices elsewhere that we can adopt? Are there countries that have, taken, a leap forward that we can, borrow a leaf from their playbook?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think the Scandinavian countries have taken a very, forward approach to EVs, and that we have seen. I think in a country like Norway, I think EV sales exceeded 50% of total cars. So they have taken quantum leaps going forward. But I think we're not doing too bad a job. I think we've seen government announce several initiatives around EVs, right? Government switching parts, a portion of their fleets to EVs, acquiring EVs, government discussing, charging infrastructure initiatives and the rest. So I think we're, we're positioning ourselves for that, not to mention kind of the sustainability angle, and all that we're pushing forward in that. So I see us developing the policies and the stance to be able to gear towards mass adoption, as you call it.
But I mean, do we have a policy of, say, encouraging people to bring in a lot of these vehicles, which would reflect in how much you are paying at the ports for the importation of these things? Are we encouraging it, or it's at par with the regular combustion engines?
I think one of the policies I think is within effect, I have to check and see where it stands, but it's a policy geared towards public transport, right? So if there's an EV bus or EV coach being brought in for public transport purposes, I think there's some duty exemptions and waivers they get, gearing towards that. So that's one of the things, the fiscal policies that we have placed, going towards that. That I think is it's a very good one, and hopefully we see that expand to be able to come to the passenger side of the equation.
The private sector is leading the charge more or less in this aspect. Do you think that a lot more education should be done? Do you even see, even in our universities, a lot of courses beyond the regular electrical engineering and all of that? That there'll be a lot more courses which will reflect a nation that is thinking about the future of electric vehicles and the fact that this is here to stay.
No, there's definitely some fantastic work being done across the country. I was in Kumasi recently at KNUST, and the automotive engineering class had built. They had actually converted, right? They had converted, a regular combustion vehicle into an EV. Wow. So that's one of the things that's going on. I mean, the students are doing fantastic work. We speak to the University of Mines, right, and Technology. They have contacted us to be able to place some of their engineering students. So those types of things. There's fantastic initiatives going forward, and like I said, I think the younger people, they're always primed for innovation, and they know a lot more.
So in terms of public transport, maybe there's some regulation, there's some encouragement there. But I remember I was trying to buy a vehicle, and this my dealer was encouraging me to buy a hybrid, but told me that because you are buying a hybrid, you probably will pay more at the port to clear the vehicle than you would if it was not a hybrid. But if this has a lot of benefits, why are we, if you like, punishing people for bringing in hybrids? Because why am I paying more?
So I think this has been looked at wholesale, and I think at the Ministry of Roads and Highways and the rest, there's been a lot of workshops and trying to understand and being able to put in kind of the right frameworks to be able to make sure that we encourage EV adoption. Traditionally, before EVs came, I think we know it's a fairly innovative area. So maybe the structures that it's what unintentionally penalizes. Unintentionally penalizes EVs, but we have seen a lot of progress towards reworking the structure, making sure that these charges are not punitive.
Anyway, what role do you think the private sector has in all of this? I mean, government can obviously not do all the work. What role would private sector, like AEA, I think that you're doing some work there. What do you think people like your organization and other organizations, what role do they have?
I think I think the role the private sector plays is critical in terms of the fact that, you know, um, private sector innovates, right, and takes the step forward. So
Okay.
providing those learnings, right, providing that information, providing the expertise of what we have learned going forward, right, into the EV sector. We should be able to provide that information to government so they can make better informed decisions, like we're just discussing. Sometimes, the decisions come from a good place, but maybe not too much data around the effect and what that. Those in the private sector, kind of have more information because they're on the ground effecting. So that collaboration is very, very important.
Okay. What have you learned, if you know, of like the Scandinavian countries who have almost 50% adoption of EV vehicles? What are the learnings from there, if you know?
I mean, so they have a lot of tax credits, geared towards the purchase of EVs as it
Okay.
relates to, refunds and emissions tax reductions, or, and some other punitive things on traditional combustion vehicles that they use to push the adoption of EVs. But one of the things about Ghana is, our situation is a bit different because traditionally, economically, the savings that the private sector can make using EV still pushes them to be able to acquire these vehicles. So I think that's one thing that we have on our side, and we just have to keep encouraging and guiding the populace, right, towards making that decision for a cleaner future.
When there is a technology that disrupts the market, there's usually a lot of pushback. And like I mentioned in my in our first half of the show, you are looking at oil companies and thinking, would they push back? Because obviously they may lose some revenue if there are a lot more people using electric vehicles. Ghana is an oil producing country. If it's calculated how much gallons of fuel people are buying and taxing it and expect a certain amount of money, wouldn't that reduce, and wouldn't that be a pushback in the future?
Yeah. So I think you can take it from a few ways, right? I don't think it has to be necessarily pushback or conflict with oil companies. I've seen oil companies invest heavily in renewable energy and green infrastructure projects,
Right.
and I think they are doing a very good job, pivoting or including some of these initiatives in their portfolio,
Yeah.
right, to be able to eventually pivot into a different industry. I think when it comes to government revenue, I think there's a different way to look at it, right?
Okay.
With regards to what might be lost in some taxation directly on petroleum products,
Right.
you will gain that in increased, income tax, right? Because people then will be gaining more revenue, or you gain that also in more sales tax, right?
Okay.
Because people then have more disposable income to be able to spend on goods and services. So it's a jigsaw puzzle that doesn't necessarily mean when you lose, revenue from a levy or a tax, you never see it again. You see it again in other indirect taxes and the like.
Wow, that's interesting. But um, in terms of the safety and technical considerations, do you think we have everything covered? You talked about the standard board and all of that, but do we have everything covered? What are they looking out for when they talk about standards of the EV vehicles? Are there certain types that will be rejected? Do you know of any ones that have been rejected? What is the expectation?
Yeah, I can't say I know of any that have been rejected. I think internationally there's some tests they do before they ship anything, right?
Okay.
There's a certificate of conformity that has to be given that makes sure that electrical charging equipment is up to standard, and EV vehicles, they undergo rigorous testing to be able to make sure that they are okay to travel on seas, they are okay to be used. So all those things have been very, very, key and very, very important. And I know that the aim is to focus on the safety aspect on it, right? To encourage adoption.
And they're very big buses that are EVs. So I'm thinking now that you say the ride-hailing vehicles are adopting a lot of the EV vehicles. I'm looking at all the big buses that go to Kumasi, for example, being electric.
Yeah.
Is that something that should be in our purview in the next few years?
I think, look, I think anything that promotes, private sector participation, it's important for the sector. There's huge buses, all electric, that can travel to Kumasi and Tamale and the rest. So I think it's all about the infrastructure and being able to provide, all of that going forward. And obviously private sector participants seeing the economic sense in these things to be able to go forward.
If you were to advise or consult for anyone who is interested in electric vehicle, the policy around it, say government's approached you for any advice, what would be your advice to government, policymakers, regulators, for example, around EV vehicles?
I mean, EVs have a potential to transform the way we look at transportation, right? With regards to the emissions, we have seen kind of, some of the air pollution statistics in Accra.
Yeah.
And sometimes the second-hand vehicles, the age at which we import these cars. And I think EVs has a chance to also transform a few of these health concerns that we have seen rise in asthma and other respiratory things that have been, in a lot of studies directly linked to the air quality that we see. I think EVs have a chance to be able to affect that. So there's a few outcomes that we can get from promoting EVs that I think we should definitely look at.
Are we always going to be end users of it? Shouldn't we, as a country, as a policy, whether we are assembling, whether we are building? You mentioned the students at, is it Tech or UMAT, who were converting a combustion vehicle into an EV. Do you see a path where we say, yeah, somebody has started it, but we can accelerate and catch up or even overtake them and not just be end users of the product?
Yeah, I think we have the raw materials to be able to do that. I think there's several companies definitely looking at that, and government has also been looking at local assembly, right? Domestic production of EVs. We already do that in traditional combustion energy vehicles. So the EVs are something that I know that we're definitely looking at, and you're right, we shouldn't be only end users. We should definitely be involved in the whole value chain.
Okay. Right? As we conclude, any words, any comments to people who are still thinking, should I go for an EV? Should I not go for an EV? What would be your concluding remarks to them?
I mean, I think you have been converted. Right?
I have been converted.
So I think, if you see anybody with an EV, stop them. Just take a look. Don't be scared.
Yeah.
I think you'll be pleasantly surprised.
Right.
And the adoption of EVs would skyrocket. We're hoping.
Thank you very much, Jermyn. Thank you, Jermyn Amissah-Arthur. He's been our guest here. We've been talking about EVs, its adoption, the regulation around it in Ghana, and everything that you regularly ask someone who's using an electric vehicle. I hope that I asked all the questions that you would normally ask, and I have been converted, and so I hope that we also have played our part in the adoption of EV vehicles in Ghana and beyond. Thank you very much for your expertise.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much.
This has been another edition of AEA Insights. As usual, we bring you very exciting conversations. My name is Daniel Odro. We are back another time with another episode. Thank you for watching, and bye for now.